I'm geeking out so much about this film, and I think violence in movies is so interesting to me, especially over the years with their character. And PG-13 violence is so different from R, obviously. Right. I mean, clearly. But I'm wondering, as an actor, how different is it performing the violence in an R versus the 13 environment?
Well, that's interesting. A little bit different, but for me, the R-rated, yeah, it is violent, and at times it's like, oh. But it's more R-rated for the story and the drama in it. I went back and watched Unforgiven just before we did this, because that was really an inspiration. And there's that great scene where the guy's on the toilet and he gets shot, you know, or the other guy and he's shot and Clint's like yelling, like, give him some water, like, you know, and it's that idea that you sit inside these moments. It's not just sort of glib, it's not just sort of slick or clean or, yes, it's violent, but it's R-rated because we're seeing the effect of the violence emotionally.
The consequences.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You know, I was geeking
But it makes it a little bit harder. When you actually putting the claws through someone's head, your fist has to go to their head. So actually,
when they come out of the top of the head,
you have to be a little more precise where you're going.
That scene was amazing. Right. In the trailer, he's like this. I'm like, oh my God, it's out of the top of his head. Yeah. You know, one thing I was talking to James about, which blew my mind, was the way they shot the seizure sequences. And James was telling me that they actually shook the camera. Yeah. And I'm wondering, for you as the actor, how are you making it look like you're being held back? I mean, I know it's acting, but are you like slowing yourself down? How are you doing that?
No, I had a rope attached to me so that I was really, and I said, I want you guys, and I'd have two guys actually pulling back on me as I'm going forward because I wanted that real. I mean, I had 3 layers of clothing. The last was a suede jacket. There was sweat going through the outside of that suede jacket. It was, because I really wanted that feeling of effort to go through.
Yeah. Now I gotta say, Daphne blew my mind.
She blew my mind too.
I hope I can meet her one day and just say thank you for this amazing action.
You will.
Yeah.
And by the way, on a Sunday I would take her and my daughter to the water slide park, and she's just like, and then Monday morning, like,
you're back killing people.
She is badass, man.
The scene when she leaps off your back, which is in the trailer, not spoiling anything. Did she do those stunts herself?
Yes.
How did that scene
work? And loved it. We had to do it quite a lot of times because the first 5, she's like, hee, like smiling like a little kid. No, remember you are. So yeah, she's incredible.
Now, obviously, one of the coolest things about the movie, I love the scene when Patrick Stewart's watching Shane, and he's talking about the idea of him going to a movie theater when he was younger. You remember that experience? Yeah. Do you have a fond memory of a specific film you saw in theaters that you think back on, like when you think of like a theater experience?
Many. First thing I saw was The Wizard of Oz. And then I remember a lot going to the drive-in. We used to go to a beach holiday place every year, and we go to the drive-in. Now, I'm a family of 5 kids, and when you're the youngest, you sit in the very back. So imagine me in the drive-in. My memory is looking through faces, and then my dad, it's raining, so the windscreen wipers are going faces. I'm trying to watch this movie, but Dad's like, I bought the tickets, we're going to watch the whole thing. I have that memory. See my dad cry at E.T., one of the first times I'd ever seen him cry.
Wow.
And Indiana Jones. When I saw that movie, that was a real turning point for me.
That's awesome.
Yes, yeah.
Well, dude, I had so many questions
Kevin,
for you, man.
Damn,
it's
man.
good to see you, man. Thank you so much, man. It's always a pleasure. See, so I want to talk to you about Shane because I think it's interesting that Mangold has that reference in the film, and I love the part where you're sitting on the bed and you say, I remember seeing this in the theater. And I'm wondering, do you have a film like that in your own memory that you saw in a theater that you remember that fondly?
Shane.
It was Shane.
Oh yeah, that line wasn't in the screenplay.
Really?
No, I told James Mangold that when he said, "Oh, we're going to be running Shane on the television," and I said, "Oh, that was one of the most important films of my childhood."
Total coincidence.
Yeah, we did actually, I think, name the cinema that I saw it in, and we named the town. And then I said, you know what? Let's name the town because most people will never have heard of it. It was a very little town. Yeah. Oh, indeed, yes. And I remember one of the biggest thrills to me working and living in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, because I never expected in my life to work in Hollywood, and then there I was on the Paramount Studios. That I learned one day that the person who had been making me up for a long time, that her father had been the makeup artist of Shane. I mean, it wasn't a direct contact, but the excitement that, and she had once been on the set of that movie. It was
That's so cool.
it's such a nerdy thing too, you know.
Hey, you're talking to a nerd. I'm about to nerd out with you here because I mean I love Deadpool, and in Deadpool there's a moment when Colossus is taking Deadpool to see Professor X, and he goes, McAvoy or Stewart, these timelines are so confusing. And I was just curious if you saw that movie, what your experience was, and also if Professor X did meet with Deadpool, what do you think he would say to him?
Oh, he would be compassionate, sympathetic, understanding, but very wary.
Yeah. I've been watching you for years. I think you're one of the greatest actors of all time. I think the emotional depth you bring to a character is incredible because I could just look at your face and just feel the emotion that you're going through. And I think that's such a hard thing for an actor to do internally. And I'm wondering, when you finish a film like this and you go through this journey of a character and the emotional depths he goes through, does it stay with you when you leave the set? Like, do you like, is part of Professor X with you right now? Like, does that stay with you?
Yes, it often does. I often reflect that it's quite hard to be married to or in a relationship with an actor or an actress because there's nothing you can do about that. I've just finished 6 months doing a play in London, and you know, after 6 months, 8 shows a week, you're living inside a character. You cannot just wash it off like you wash off the makeup in your dressing room. It hangs around, and I've had experiences. I played the role of Macbeth for a year in London and New York, Brooklyn, Chichester, and it began to mess with me finally.
Wow.
There's, you know, only so many times you can say I'm stepped in blood so far and mean it, that it starts to undermine you, and that's what happened to me with that role and has happened in less kind of ghastly situations in the past.
Cool. Well, it's an honor to sit across from you. Thank you for your time. That's
Oh,
such a cool story to hear, the Shane story. I didn't know that you were... I find violence in movies so fascinating because PG-13 violence and R-rated violence are two completely different animals. And you obviously shot Wolverine with a PG-13 and this with an R. Can you talk about the difference in directing the violence and how that comes to play in regards to filmmaking?
Well, it's a very interesting thing because the way basically ratings boards judge violence...
Blood.
No, it's penetration, to use a porn term. It's about if you see a bullet enter a body or a body explode from the entry of the bullet, that would be considered penetration. If you see a knife tip entering a body, that's penetration. So you'll notice when you make sword films, like I did with the last Wolverine, you'll often see people getting stabbed from behind. You just can't see the blades entering the body. So the reality is that, especially when you have a knife-wielding hero, and heroine in this case, you're really limited in how you're going to be able to cover it when you have a PG-style rating because you really can't go very far. And to me, there's just, and it's an interesting question because it gets down to questions about violence and is it more savory or more healthy for people to watch 100 people getting mowed down with a machine gun in a PG-13 film, or one person getting stabbed in an R film. But it has to do with our own cultural values and how they've kind of assembled themselves.
Well, it's the same stupid reason that you can say the F word once or twice in a 13 film, that if you go past...
If you say it 3 times, that's
getting an R. Yeah. King's
But
Speech, R-rated
by
movie.
the way, just turn on HBO any day of the week in your own home and get F-bombed into oblivion.
Exactly.
But the real reality for me was the delivering the violence and the choreography on a level that audiences, I think, have been waiting for was one real value added of the rating. But there was another one that was really important to me, which was just the idea that that the movie could be for grown-ups. Once you restrict the audience and you know that there's not any 9 or 11-year-olds coming to this movie, the studio suddenly acknowledges that and understands, A, you have to promise to make the movie for less money, which we did, because they can't make as much if they can't market it to everyone. But B, you get to make a more interesting film, because suddenly you're writing for 17 and older. And the character issues and the struggles and the longings and the fears of these characters can be a lot more sophisticated.
Now, I was geeking out beyond belief with the seizure sequence because I won't give anything away specifically, but that scene in the casino was one of the coolest action scenes I've ever seen. And I haven't geeked out that much probably since the Quicksilver
nobody moves.
scene. Yeah, and I want to know, as a filmmaker, how you're shooting that. Are you shaking the camera? How are you making it look like he can't move? And are the people actually frozen?
Well, people are frozen. We're doing the standard, even in the Easter egg scene in the end credits on the Wolverine, I did Charles freezing everyone, and that we did in the same old way. But the reality is, it's one thing we figured. We tried all sorts of kind of force effects, didn't like any of them. So one of the things we tried was actually, yes, vibrating the camera extremely fast, but then you run it through a stabilizer. There's these computer programs that stabilize. Well, they even have it on home video cameras now, like it reduces shake.
Yeah.
So if you shake a camera like crazy and then you run it through a stabilizer, you have all this really interesting smearing of light going on where the light is kind of vibrating, but the camera's essentially steady. But it is coming from, you've got it. It's coming from shaking the camera at high speed and then having a secondary program remove the shake, so that you have nothing left but this kind of vibrating blur inside a steady frame.
That was cool. Now I'm wondering, filmmaking-wise, how the arm worked, because there's scenes where you take it off, detach it. Is it like a green arm? Like how do you?
Yeah, it was just like a green sock, like one of those little Muppets.
Cool.
Yeah, just that, and I guess the VFX guys, a guy in it, I won't get into it to them, but yeah, they did the magic on that.
Do you get a previs, like when you're acting on set? Do you know where your fingers are? Like, 'cause you move them a lot, like Terminator.
Yeah, I
almost.
would give them sort of a foundation, something to work off of.
Yeah.
Essentially, though, they could do anything they wanted. They could just be like this the whole time. That'd be funny.
Yeah. We'll do a recut of Logan, just you flipping everyone off. It is crazy to watch this movie because it is so extremely violent in such an interesting way. And watching this young character perform this violence, I'm wondering, when you were on set, like, how was she being directed? Was it like, was she like heavily involved, like in knowing what was going on? I mean, her character is, but how was that seeing her do that?
Well, James has an excellent way about him in terms of work that he speaks to, the gaffer, to Daphne the same way. There's just no difference.
Yeah.
And Daphne is extremely, mature for her age and intelligent young girl, who I can't even believe that she's accomplished what she's accomplished. I know I couldn't have done that when I was 12, or 11, I guess I should say. Yeah, she's also acting in her second language. She's from Spain, so it's just checking off all these boxes of how did you do that? It's really impressive. There's
parts of your character that we haven't seen because we know there's backstory. We know what he's been doing. Do you fill that stuff in? Like, do you for yourself?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Like, do you build things that aren't in the script, like what
where
he's from, what he's been doing?
Oh yeah, I could tell you his parents' names. I could tell you if he's his first girlfriend. You do all that.
Really?
Yeah, I think
that's cool.
I think sometimes for me the best part about doing the line of work that I do is actually before shooting. I think that's a lot funner than actually shooting. I mean, shooting is actually a phenomenal experience too, but you have all these discoveries constantly. I mean, you'll be doing dishes and like, oh, I should have a gold tooth.
That was your decision?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Why did I have a gold tooth? Well, I got a rifle hit me in the face after I mouthed off to somebody, and then you just kind of start daydreaming and playing, and through any sort of daily ritual that you would do, like washing the dishes, you just start coming up with ideas.
That's awesome. I didn't know the gold tooth was your choice. That's kind of cool.
Well,
that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, nice to meet you, buddy.
You too, man.
And congratulations on the